I made a gas tank video some time ago, and I showed the pickup tube, but someone wrote me an email and said that the filter that I was using and I had a question on was actually very familiar to him. He said it looked very much like the ones he was using that came out of automobile fuel injectors. So I looked and I found these on eBay, and for 11 bucks I got 20 of them. And these are actually a finer screen than the one that I had, but it doesn't have the flange on the outside edge, but they're much better made, and they're like 50 cents a piece. The other ones I was paying $7 or $8 for, and they came inside of this from the model airplane industry, and I throw this part away and just take the filter out of it. So, you know, the filter isn't in this one, I show it to you, but it's got a little flange around it. Well, anyway, I've redesigned this pickup tube so that you can use this filter. And all I'm going to do is put that in there like this. Whoop. You see it just fits inside there. And what the idea of it is to make the pickup tube the right length so it holds that perfectly level, and then I can put an O-ring on top of it. When I screw the cover on, it'll seal that gap. I'm using 5/16 solid brass to make this out of. What this is 40 threads per inch. And if you don't have that, you're probably going to have to use 3/8 to get enough meat so you can do this. But this is a 5/16 brass with a 40 threads per inch that I've done on the lathe. And actually I just did it with a die on the lathe and made a long piece. I'm going to cut off a short piece of this, and that'll be the part that screws into the tank. And I usually use about a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to take the burr off the edge now. That should screw in there nicely. Okay, that screws in the tank well. And I've made up a little knurled nut with a 40 threads per inch. And that's going to go, excuse me, the thin one is going to go on here first. Whoop. And that's going to be right about in the middle. That way I can screw it into here. And then this part is going to be the pickup part of the tube. So that's going to go on there like that. And it has to go down almost flush. So you can make these in the same tap it, and then just part the two pieces off. So now what I've got to do is solder this tube in there so this is flush with the top. Now if I leave it down just a hair, I can take this with the lathe and just trim it off, or I could sand it down too, but I'm just going to shoot for flush. So I got to clean both pieces up. I cleaned the inside of there already, and I'm just going to take some 3M pad and wipe this off. Put that on there. This is just going to be a test. I got to put the filter in. And that's flush. So what I'm going to do is a little flux on it. See, now I got the flux on it. Put that in there like that. I'm putting the filter in. And I'm going to set it up here. And get that so that it's just flush. That's perfect. And clamp it in place. And I'm going to take the filter out of there and solder it. There. Okay, that came all the way through. Got a little bead on the side of it there. I got to grind that off. So I've soldered the pipe in there so that it can't go all the way down, and you just see it. And the filter should come out just exactly flush with that. Now if I put an O-ring on top of that and push it down, it should seal that gap around there. So to make the top, I'm just going to take a piece of 3/8 brass, put it in the lathe, and I'm going to turn it so that I can just barely fit that on there so it'll center it. So the hole is 286 and this is 375 89 thousandths. So I got to take 89 thousandths off of that. So half of 89 is what, 44 and a half? That's a perfect fit. So I'm going to solder that on there. But first, I want to drill a hole into it about, I get my caliper here. Probably want to go in about 200 thousandths tops. And this is going to be the fuel passage. So an 1/8 inch hole is plenty. Okay, that's 200 thousandths. So I drilled in there 200 thousandths, so I want to part it off at about 300 thousandths. 1, 2, 3. That's going to give me a little extra. There's the piece. Now what I'm going to do is drill a hole in through the side here before I round it off, because if I round it off, it's hard to drill the hole. Now, this is for the fuel pickup tube. I'm just going to spot drill it in the center. And then I got to go in there with a 1/8 inch drill bit. Okay, that should fit the tube. That'll work. So I'm going to put a little flux on this all the way around. That in there. And I just got to solder this. So I have a little mandrel here that I got 40 threads per inch on the end of it. I'm just going to put that in there, screw this onto it. Okay, now I'm just going to round the top off a little bit with a file to make it pretty. So now you can see I've got a flat surface in there, and what I'm going to do is drop an O-ring in there, and when I screw that together it should seal. Yep, that seems to be tight. That's going to work. You see what I'm doing? I'm sealing both of those sides with the O-ring that's in here. and that'll be the pickup tube. Now all I have to do is make sure it's the right length. I got to shorten it a little bit. It won't go in there all the way. Whoop. It's hitting the bottom already. So we're going to make the pickup tube, the check ball for the pickup tube. So in the bottom I have a slug, and I'm going to drill a hole through it, which is already a start of a hole there. But I have to turn this down to just fit in the bottom of here. It shouldn't quite fit yet. I think we got to take another 5. Okay, that's good. Slides in there nicely. Probably ought to give it just a hair clearance for the solder. So I'm going to use a 3/16 ball, and I think what I use is a 1/8 drill for a 3/16 ball. So I'm going to take a just got to recheck my dimensions here. So these are 3/16 brass balls, and I think if I drill a 1/8 hole, it should be just about right. I don't want it, if you get the hole too big, it can stick in the hole. So we're going to try one side down. We're going to try 7/64 first and see how that looks. Get rid of that. Now see, that ball wouldn't go in very far, so I'm going to try the 1/8. See how that does it. Looks a lot bigger, but that should work just about right. I could go a little larger, actually, I think, but I think that'll work out good. So I'm going to part off a piece of this. So what I'm going to do is take this over and put it on the steel plate and stake that ball down into it a little bit. On there, and I'm going to hit it with a hammer. And hopefully that gets a perfectly round seat. Now I'm not going to use this ball because I've hammered on it. It might have a little dent in it. Shouldn't, but I'm going to use a fresh one. Yep. So we're going to solder this into that tube with that side up. Just leaving enough of that sticking out so I can hit it with the solder. That should do it. Just want to make sure it ran all the way around, and it seems to have. So I'll drop the ball in there. It should seal. You can't really tell, but it feels like it's sealing. So just so that if this is on the bottom of the tank, it can't seal, I just usually file a little relief into it. So even if it's screwed down to the bottom, it won't interfere with the fuel. Okay, there it is. And as you can see, you can always check the ball, make sure it's clean and so forth when you take your fuel pickup off. And you can dump it out of there, because if you capture that ball and you can't get it out, you can't really tell to clean it. I always take it out and clean it when I bring it home from a show. The filter goes in like this. The cap goes on like that, and I still have to solder the fuel line into this, and that'll be it. And it doesn't matter if this doesn't have to seal here. So you can turn that thing around. The fuel pickup can be in any direction. It doesn't matter. I'll put the fuel pickup into it now. A little flux on here. Put it in. Strike up the torch. You notice I put it in a vise so the other two pieces won't fall apart. And there it is. So there it is. That's what it looks like finished. And like I said, you can turn this any way, because it only has to seal where that O-ring is. So the reason I made this video is to show you how to use these filters, because they're a lot cheaper, and I think they're actually better than the ones I was using. The ones I was using had a flange on it, and I would put an O-ring on top of it. But this is a much better system. It's just a little fussy getting that O-ring to fit on both of those things at once, but it seems to work good. To test and see if the check ball is working, you can take a long piece of tubing like this and put it on here. And this will also check and see if you've got a good seal. You see the water come up? Okay, now, the level this would be, the thing is about that far, and you can see that's hardly moving at all. But if you go way up like this, you'll see that it moves down faster. But it only has to hold it the amount of time that it takes for the engine to fire twice. So if it's hardly moving like this, usually your carburetor is about that much above. You can see it really doesn't move at all. Can you zoom in on this, Jim? Mm-hmm. You see that the water level there? It's not moving at all. But of course, if you bring it way up here, there's a lot of pressure on it, and it hardly moves there either. But it will move. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.